No, thanks. Well, I didn't start doing that at the beginning. Um, we study cancer from a purely academic perspective, where we look at different biochemical abnormalities in tumor cells compared to normal cells. And we try to get an understanding of, what's going on inside of a tumor with respect to the disordered biochemistry. And I spent many years analyzing the lipids, the fats and glycolipid composition of tumors. But at the same time, we were doing a lot of work on epilepsy. I had been a member of the Epilepsy Society, and we were doing work on mapping genes for epilepsy. But it became clear that diet therapies for epilepsy were very powerful. And Jim Abrams, who started the Charlie Foundation, is a movie maker himself. His son Charlie was rescued from uh, terrible epileptic seizures using ketogenic diets. So in our lab, we had parallel programs in epilepsy and cancer, but the cancer studies were more into the vascularization and the biochemistry. It wasn't into management or looking at how we can control it. It was basically what's going on. But when the two parallel fields are together in the same lab, and we're looking at diet therapies for managing epilepsy, and then we read a paper by Linda Nebling some time ago in 1995, where she used a ketogenic diet to treat two children that had pediatric aggressive brain cancer. And we had brain tumors that we're working with in the lab biochemically. And we have epilepsy that we're managing with calorie restriction and ketogenic diets. And only became a similar question. How would one of these diets work on the tumor? And if Linda Nebling saw such dramatic results in two children, let's check our brain cancer models. And the next thing we know, we saw powerful um, uh, effects on the tumor by just changing the diet. So calorie restriction, and then we came to realize that this was the result of lowering blood sugar and elevating ketone bodies, which is the mechanism by which this diet works to stop epilepsy. We're really not sure the mechanism for epilepsy completely, but for cancer, it becomes very clear. The tumor cells cannot live without glucose. They have to have glucose as a sugar. And when you lower glucose, you put metabolic pressure on the tumor cell. And that led us to realize that we worked into we realized the work of Otto Warburg, who said many years ago that cancer was a metabolic disease driven by high glycolysis and sugar consumption. We absolutely validated all of Warburg's findings. And then we moved forward and showed and found that there was a second fuel, the amino acid glutamine. And Warburg did not know about that. And almost the entire cancer field still, they recognize that glutamine is important, but they don't realize that it's also a fermentable fuel rather than a respiration fuel. And that's, if you look at most of the papers in the scientific literature, they say, oh yeah, glutamine is very important, but it's respired. It's used as a respiration. And well, we know that that's nonsense, because the tumor cell cannot respire. It ferments because the mitochondria are defective. So we have, with my colleagues at Semmelweis University, Christos Xenopoulos, world expert on fermentation in the mitochondria, we were able to define the pathway. The glutaminolysis pathway is a fermentation pathway. So in other words, the tumor cells can live on glutamine and glucose in the absence of oxygen. And that tells us now that these guys are very dependent on just two fuels. They're not metabolically flexible. And we found out this is a characteristic of all major cancers. So they're all very similar on having a near complete dependence on two fermentable fuels, glucose and glutamine, which means that we can starve tumor cells without toxicity once we put the pressure on these two fuels. So it becomes now in my mind, a very manageable, much more manageable disease that we can at least restrict the growth and potentially kill large numbers of tumor cells without toxicity. This is the paradigm change that will eventually replace what we call the toxic standards of care that are present. The other thing that's extremely important
if you
to
want to
mention
learn
is
how
that
to
the
implement the ketogenic
cancer
diet and the
industry,
Press Pulse
the
protocol
National
into your cancer
Institute,
management,
are
just
all of
visit
the assumption that cancer is a genetic disease.
school.com/keto for cancer.
I have
The new
clearly shown in
community
my
by
work
our
that
research
it's not a
analyst,
genetic
Johnny
disease. It's a
Rockermeyer.
mitochondrial
Within
metabolic
this new
disease
community
involving an
platform,
organelle
you can
inside the
connect
cell
with
called
other
the
patients and
mitochondria.
learn from their
It is the
experiences.
controller of the
You can also
metabolic
just search through the
homeostasis and the
posts other members
bioenergetics
have
of the
already
cell.
made.
And when that organelle becomes
You will have
corrupted, the
access
cell
to our
falls back
classroom
into
section
an
as well, which
undifferentiated
provides
state
practical
of
advice and tools for
dysregulated
the best
proliferation.
results.
So that's
These
driven by a
sections cover
fermentation
all parts of the
metabolism,
Press Pulse protocol that
the
you should
sugar, glucose,
implement,
and the glutamine
starting with the
amino
general
acid.
scientific
And then
concepts
if you
by
target
Dr.
those two
Thomas Seyfried.
together while
We will show you
transitioning
how
the
to
body
start the
over to
ketogenic
ketosis,
diet, including which
the tumor
foods to
cells
choose
can't use
and
ketone
which to
bodies or fatty
avoid.
acids for energy. So
Additionally,
they
we
become
prepared a
starved.
list of
And you
doctors
can do that. It
specialized in
takes time.
metabolic
It has to be
therapy,
done in the right
as
way.
well as details about
And
glutamine
patients are
inhibition
mostly
and hyperbaric oxygen
participatory
protocols.
in their
So, take a look
action
around
to
at
do this. So they play, the
school.com/keto for
patient
cancer.
themselves have to know about this. They need scientific literacy so they can be a participant in the management of their cancer with the guidance of a understanding either oncologist or physician that could guide them in doing the right thing. So this will eventually replace the toxic. It just takes time. Because the majority of physicians, oncologists, know very little about the biology of cancer. They're not familiar with Otto Warburg's work. If they've heard about it, they just heard about a Warburg effect or some superficial thing. They need to know the real biology and biochemistry of what's driving the dysregulated growth. We understand that. We know how to target this, and we're in the beginning stages of developing very powerful, non-toxic metabolic therapies for managing cancer. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
You said a lot in that nutshell, and I'd like to kind of crack that nut a little bit. You talk about fermentation. So let's get a basic scientific recap of the cell and what causes the cell to function and what causes the cell to not malfunction, because a cell requires oxygen, right? In order for us to survive and thrive, we need oxygen. But I heard you say that the cancer cell ferments, and so it doesn't require oxygen, and that's why they're two totally different cells, and they keep replicating and replicating. So I would like for you to give us like a science instruction so that as we move forward, people will understand the terminology of what's happening to our cell and what's causing that malfunction.
Yeah, well, every one of our major organs is full of individual cells. The cells all work together as a team to perform a particular function for an organ. A liver does liver things, kidney does kidney things, brain does brain things, bladder does bladder things, breast can. All of these cells in our different organs are all linked together in a community of cells, and they get their energy through, as you said, Lillian, you breathe oxygen. Every breath we take into our body is oxygen, and that oxygen is used as an acceptor of electrons from the foods that we eat, so we can generate energy. And as we exhale, we're blowing out CO2, carbon dioxide. And those carbons are the actual breakdown products of the foods that we ate. So we exhale, we produce water and CO2 as the waste products of normal cellular respiration. And these cells are quiescent. We call them differentiated or quiescent. They're all together in a society doing what they do. And the organelle inside those cells is called the mitochondrion. You really can't see it unless you look under the electron microscope. But basically, it's a spaghetti kind of network inside the cell. And everybody knows about the nucleus containing the DNA and the RNA and this kind of stuff. I don't know why that thing is ringing. I pulled it off the hook and it still rings. But anyway, it's just, it'll go away. It's many people emailing me or calling me for help on managing cancer.
And I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
Well,
okay, so
I give them educational material to help them.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I still haven't figured out how the phone, I've had many technicians come and say, I pull the phone off the hook and yet it still rings. So,
but you know what? As long as you focus on how to reverse cancer through metabolic therapies,
yeah,
I think that we're good.
I can do that, but I can't figure out how the phone works. So
okay, and so let's continue on with the cell.
yeah,
and the,
yeah.
and the lesson.
Okay, so anyway, we were talking about the society of our cells, and we have a whole concept called metabolic homeostasis. Those of us who are in pretty good physical shape and healthy, all of the cells and all of the different organs of our system all work together in a unified whole of our body. So you get up every day, you take a deep breath, and you look forward to a great day of doing whatever you do. And all of your cells are contributing towards your well-being, if you will. But, certain lifestyles put us at risk for cellular dysfunction. Some people who get up, they have very little exercise during the course of the day. They may not like the job they're in, so therefore their attitude can be a little bit less than ebullient, happy. They don't eat they're pounding down highly processed foods that are very little poor nutritional value. They may be under a tremendous amount of stress, whether that's trying to commute in Los Angeles, Boston, or Chicago. It doesn't make any difference. Atlanta, you're all sitting in traffic jams. Some guy cuts you off, and then you get into the job workplace, and you may not be as happy as you should be. So you get a lot of stress. You're eating poor foods. You're not getting exercise. You don't sleep well at night. And the next thing you know, some cell in a particular organ or a population of cells becomes metabolically imbalanced. So what happens is you can damage the respiration of the cell through any number of chronic problems, like exposure to chemical carcinogens, radiation, systemic inflammation, intermittent hypoxia, a viral infection, just getting older on the planet. We all are living under planned obsolescence. We don't live forever. And we die because our mitochondria, the energy driving organelle in the cell, eventually wears out and gives up, and you die. Now, some people can live into their late 90s and hundreds. They obviously have a good mitochondria that keeps their body functional. But many folks in the society, those organelles get worn down over time, and they start to produce less and less energy, and they start to transition away from energy with oxygen to energy without oxygen. So that happens when the mitochondria become dysfunctional or damaged or changed in some way. And that as that happens, the cell loses its metabolic homeostasis and falls into an alternative energy, which is we call fermentation. Now, most cells will die. They don't generally immediately switch from respiration to fermentation. What we have is short term. So individuals that have heart attacks or hold their breath or under partial suffocation or things like that, the body builds up a tremendous amount of lactic acid. And this is an attempt by the body to try to get energy, which is ATP. Energy is ATP from an alternative source. But they can only do that for a very short period of time. Because, if your heart stops beating, you die because the body is not getting energy. And what happens, you die from brain damage from heart attacks, basically. Your brain needs a lot of oxygen. But tremendous amounts of lactic acid is produced. This is lactic acid fermentation is energy without oxygen. But you can only do this for a short period of time. What cancer cells have done is they have adapted to energy without oxygen. So over chronic periods, chronic disruption of the mitochondrial energy production allows the cell to gradually become more and more dependent on this energy from fermentation, which is energy without oxygen. And eventually, what happens is these cells start growing in a dysregulated way because the very organelle that controls the quiescent differentiated state is the mitochondria, the little organelle that gives us the energy. When that organelle becomes gradually corrupted, the cell falls into a compensatory fermentation. which means you're generating energy without oxygen. So that's why these cancer cells, now when you see a tumor under the PET scan or MRI or something like this, there's already millions of these tumor cells, these cells that are living and growing, dysregulated, and they can grow without oxygen. So that tells us that they are using a non-oxygen energy to divide and grow, because without energy, you can't divide or grow. You can't do anything. You're going to die. So the cancer cells switch from oxidative phosphorylation to what we call substrate level phosphorylation, which is a form of energy that does not require oxygen. And the bottom line is that these cells will grow in a dysregulated way as long as they have glucose and glutamine present in the microenvironment.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as they have access to the fermentable fuels that allow them to grow in the absence of oxygen, they're not going to be easy to kill. And, we can poison somebody and we can nuke somebody and we can do all these crazy things to try to kill the dividing cells. But you'll kill certainly you'll kill a large amount of cells when you do these poisonous treatments. But you may also, excuse me, you might also have a few that survive, and they'll come back at you. And that's what we call recurrence. So at first the tumors look like they're managed, and in many cases they are, but then you have this recurrence, and these cells come back in a much more aggressive way. And they are also dependent on glucose and glutamine because the mitochondria are defective. So once we know that, we now know that we can target these two fuels simultaneously with drugs and diets, and we can transition the body over to an alternative fuel. Our bodies, human beings, like many other creatures, can live in starved conditions. Humans are remarkably resilient to live without food. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We evolved as a species over hundreds of thousands of years to live with minimal amounts of food in our diets. We can go long periods of time. We are supremely adapted to be metabolically efficient with minimal amounts of food. We store fat as a source of energy when there's no food available. So we mobilize fats, and we can use these fats. Normal cells can burn fatty acids and ketone bodies. The ketone bodies are simply a water-soluble breakdown product of long-chain fatty acids. So the brain sucks the ketone bodies up and can replace glucose. So we don't need glucose, very minimal levels of glucose. But the brain can burn all of these things because they have normal brain cells. Normal cells have great mitochondria, and they can burn fatty acids and ketone bodies. The tumor cells can't. So that tells us clearly now the solution to the cancer problem is they need fermentable fuels, and they can't burn or survive on non-fermentable fuels. So that tells us right there what we need to do. And this is the case for all major cancers. It's lung cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, bladder cancer, kidney cancer, blood cancers. We don't want to exclude the blood cancers. They have the same problem that the rest of the cancers have. They're all locked into a fermentation metabolism, and they can't respire. So they can't use fatty acids or ketone bodies. And people say, oh, there's some cancer cells that can. No, they can't. We have interrogated them. If you grow them in the absence of glucose and glutamine, or you give them fatty acids and ketone, they'll die. They can't use them. They got to have the glucose and glutamine there. And sometimes glucose and glutamine will, with a fatty acid, make them grow a little faster. But it's not because of the fatty acids itself. It's because the fatty acids allow the cell to use more glucose and glutamine. So that gives the misinformation that some tumor cells use fatty acids. So you got to know the biochemistry of the whole situation. The bottom line is that we have never yet found any tumor cell that can survive for very long in the absence of glucose and glutamine, because we have never yet found a tumor cell that has a normal content and composition of mitochondria. The mitochondria, the energy-generating organelle within the cell, is corrupted in all major cancers. So that means they have to ferment. They won't live without fermentation, and they can't burn ketones and fatty acids. When you break it down like that, it's not that complicated.
No,
we have just made this disease massively complicated because people think it's a genetic disease. And you have millions of mutations. All different cells have mutations. So we're focusing on downstream effects. Those mutations come from the mitochondria producing reactive oxygen species, which are carcinogenic and mutagenic. So what most of the field is studying are downstream effects, not the real underlying cause. Once you understand the biology of the disease, the strategies for management become much more reasonable, logical, and effective. The problem is most of the top medical schools and scientific academic programs either ignore it or say, oh, no, there's something different. It's not the way I'm making it out to be. But I'll tell you, I have looked into all of this, and we have tested all of this, and we have seen it happen not only in preclinical systems, but also in people. And the movie now, the documentary, The Cancer Revolution by Maggie and Bragg Jones, are now collecting dozens and dozens of these so-called terminal cancer patients who are now doing metabolic therapy and living fine. They're getting on. They have a high quality of life. They're surviving far longer than they would have, and they're using metabolic therapies. So clearly, if when you know what you're doing and you understand the biology, then you get this kind of result. People live longer with a higher quality of life, and their cancers are managed. That tells you know what you're doing. Because right now we have, as you said at the beginning, we have over 1,600 people a day dying in hospitals or at home from being mistreated or with therapies that are ineffectual for a large number of people. And those guys, those folks that do survive, often pay a very serious price. They have all kinds of hormonal imbalances, digestive issues, neuropsychiatric problems. Because they were poisoned and irradiated. And any healthy person walking the streets who would be just given cancer treatment without having cancer would be in serious health issues. You don't make people healthy by irradiating and poisoning them. No. But yet this is what the strategy has been in the standards of care. You have to try to kill the cancer cells just before you kill the patient. And some folks just can't handle that. Right. And the new immunotherapies, which you hear about advertised, they're all based on the somatic mutation theory of cancer, which is cancer is a genetic disease, and it's not a genetic disease.
It isn't. So
that's why you have some of these immunotherapies will kill the patient before the cancer does. There should be no reason why you would ever want to treat a patient with something that has a remote chance of killing them. When I see people with bald heads, what's going on in cancer treatment? Does your hair follicles have tumor cells in them? Why are you losing your hair? You're trying to kill cancer cells, not go bald. That tells you, whenever you see a bald-headed person, I say that person is treated with somebody who doesn't understand the biology of the disease. You want to kill cancer cells. There's no reason why you should go bald. Metabolic therapy will kill cancer cells without making you go bald. As a matter of fact, metabolic therapy not only kills cancer cells, but makes the rest of your body healthy. So you eliminate a lot of the toxic effects. Now, it will take a while. I'm not saying that this
you say it's going to take a while. It took 20 years for hand washing to take effect in the hospitals, for doctors to wash their hands. It took 20 years for that. And so what I'm saying to you is, the last time we spoke, you were really focusing on epilepsy and the ketogenic diet and how it was helping. And from there's been this revelation, or maybe at the same time, there was this revelation of how cancer thrives, how it thrives. And why, with everything that you're saying today, why hasn't one school adapted this, or one hospital that's treating, like Sloan Kettering, for example, who's thought of as a major place to go to if you have cancer? People spend a lot of money with these coming out of pocket because side effects. They spend a lot of money and they go to these treatments that are not going to be beneficial for their body, because their insurance is dictating that if they don't go here, they're going to have to pay out of pocket with regular. If they go to do something alternative like metabolic treatment, that it's going to cost them out of pocket because the insurance is not going to pay for it. So the person that is being told, and I had talked to you about my philosophy of the white coat trance. We've been taught that doctors know better than us. Doctors know better than us. And then we go into a clinic and you're given they breathe death onto you because we've been told cancer will kill you, not the treatment. And so we've been conditioned. How can we change this? Because I do want to talk about what the metabolic treatment looks like, but how can it be that no one's been put in jail for not at least being curious about your work?
Yeah, well, it comes back to there's never one single reason for a calamity. This is a metabolic calamity that we have with respect to the cancer industry. And there's never one thing that are generally responsible for calamities or disasters. And you'll find that if cancer patients go to their oncologists, and whether those oncologists are at the Sloan Kettering, Dana-Farber, MD Anderson, or wherever they might be, or even in smaller clinics, and you say, I'd like metabolic therapy, the response is there's no evidence to support that. Oh, I heard that cancer cells are dependent on sugar, and most of the oncologists, many, I've almost all, that's not true. This sugar has nothing to do with cancer.
And I will add, I used to be a marketing rep for an imaging center that had PET CT. So I used to walk into all these cancer centers, and they all had cookies, Tootsie Rolls, anything that the people, while they were waiting, they were consuming, given by the same oncology group that was treating them. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, that's true. And well, you look at the education that the medical students get. When they go to medical school, their first biochemistry is cancer. If they do any work on cancer at all, they're talking about its genetic components. If you go to the National Cancer Institute website, you'll see if you look at, say, what is cancer, you'll go down and say cancer is a genetic disease driven by mutations in the nucleus. Okay, well, clearly this is not correct. I mean, the evidence to say that that's not correct is massive. And I have gone in my papers and eviscerated myself and others that cancer is not a genetic disease, yet the National Cancer Institute says that it is. So, and then you say, well, they give out large amounts, hundreds of millions of dollars in grant support for people that are studying gene mutations in cancer. And cancer is not a genetic disease. So you have good money thrown after bad. You have misinformation that's just profound. And then when you tell folks that it's not, they said, well, that can't be true, because if it were true, I would have heard about it in medical school. Well, you don't hear about it in medical school. No. So you're caught in a vortex here. Well, I mean, don't you think if you're right, don't you think everybody would be doing metabolic therapy? And the answer is, well, they've never heard of it. They've never been trained to understand this. They've been told that cancer is a genetic disease. So it becomes an ideological dogma. It becomes a belief system. And then you have all of these pharmaceutical industries and academic centers all hunting for personalized targeting this mutation or that mutation. It's not a genetic disease. Yeah. So what do you think the outcome will be? Over 1,600 people a day dying from cancer. And it's getting worse and worse. More people are getting cancer for a variety of different reasons. But the treatments that they're giving you to manage the disease is in large part killing a large number of people, or not managing their cancer. And those who are the millions of so-called cancer cells, you got to love the human body, how tough it is. I mean, you can poison and irradiate it, and still people are alive after being brutalized. But again, they suffer from a lot of adverse effects. There's only a very few that really have a cure of their cancer and are perfectly healthy. A lot of folks, their cancer is gone, but now they have all kinds of other metabolic issues, health issues as the result of this. The nice thing about metabolic therapy is that the body really gets healthy. Not only do you kill the cancer cells and manage them effectively, but you also get rid of a lot of other potential health issues that you had. So why do we have this continual resistance to metabolic therapy? Is, I would say, lack of knowledge predominantly. There's just not a familiarity with this. And the biggest resistance is when the cancer patient goes to the medical school and says, I would like metabolic therapy. Well, there's no evidence to support that. But the science is there. The science is rock solid. Well, I've never seen that science. Well, what do you do? I mean, if you haven't seen the evidence, you've never seen the the underlying mechanism of how cancer cells divide and grow dysregulated, and you're told that you can just use this toxic chemical or this radiotherapy, and that's all you know, and no one ever told you anything more than that, and then of course you're going to resist it, and there's a financial incentive to maintain the status quo.
Yeah, it's too big to fail. Too big to fail.
The hospitals generate massive revenues on the parts of toxic chemicals and radiation. Insurance companies pay this. So it's a big system that will need to change. But, I don't think we can overturn the entire cancer industry in one swoop. It takes time for the industry to adapt, to adjust and adapt.
Yeah, and the people need to request it. We need to request it and not settle for anything else.
Well, yeah, but then they're told to leave. We don't want you as a patient anymore. It makes the cancer patient feel terrible.
Even worse,
and question their own result. And the doctor doesn't feel good. He's now told that he might not really understand the nature of the disease he's treating. He gets angry at the patient. The patient feels bad. The doctor feels bad. But we can work a hybrid system, I think, until we can bring the educational wherewithal to this whole problem. Yeah. But I've seen some of my colleagues use very, very low doses of chemotherapy while under nutritional ketosis. So even radiation in some cases can work much, much more effectively when the patient is in nutritional ketosis. So clearly, we can gradually reduce our dependency on highly toxic processes, while the field regains a better understanding of the biology of the disease, and eventually it'll transition over. But it takes some education, and it takes a new type of commitment. And also, we have to think of how do we balance revenue generation while we transition from one state to the next.
That's the bottom line. The money. Follow the money. Follow the money trail.
The business of America is business. I mean, people want to make a buck. But I think we'll let the entrepreneurs deal with that.
But they can make a buck. They can make a buck with metabolic therapies. They can make a buck getting the body healthy. I interviewed many times Dr. James Forsyth. He's an oncologist, and he changed to a holistic homeopath. He would do, if the person could receive the chemo. So he would test to see if they were resistant to that chemotherapy. And so he would make sure that he would know which one, if they needed chemo, because he only treated stage 4 cancers because they were sent home to die. And so he does 1/10 of the chemo that is being used. And that is a holistic dose of that. And his success rate was over 70% when I interviewed him last, and of stage 4 cancers. That, to me, this is criminal to me, because if I believe that if we had an airplane, which we've had airplanes blow up in midair, and 1,600 people were in that plane, and it happened every day, someone would stop that plane from taking off, and they would find an alternative to that travel plan for these people. And so what I believe needs to happen right now is that we need to be our own MD, our own medical detective. Just this little lesson in science makes me want to go back and understand more of how our body works. I know that our body is forgiving. Our cells just love us back when we love our body and give it what it needs. And this is what we talk about at whenyounneedafriend.com. If you're coming here for the first time, please know that when you go there, I ask that you please subscribe. Not only subscribe, but you do need to opt in. So there'll be an email that will be sent to you so that you can opt in and learn about all these ways that you can, these new truths that are not, and Dr. Seyfried said they're not being suppressed, they just don't know better. And in the Bible, it says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And it's not that they didn't have the information, is that they rejected the information. That's the part that they don't say when they say my people perish for lack of knowledge. And you'll find that in Hosea, I think it's 4:6 out of the top of my head. But I want to encourage you to take your health back by doing this research. listen to what Dr. Seyfried is saying, but don't believe a word. Do your own research. And if you come to the same conclusion, now it becomes your truth as well, not something you're repeating. Because when you repeat something and somebody else comes on stronger, then you have nothing to stand on. So I want to encourage you to do your own research. Go to whenyounneedafriend.com. Please subscribe, like and follow me on all social media. Know that the best way that you can help this classroom grow, especially with this show, this class today, is by putting, make a comment. How are you outraged that this is happening, that this information has been out for longer than 8 years? Dr. Seyfried has taken it to a new direction. So it's been around for a long time. Aren't you outraged? Please share in your comment section how you feel about this. And I also want you to honor those people that you've lost needlessly. And I know it creates anger, and the anger is not at the industry that killed the person. It's at the people who are reporting the truth. And so I just want you to really sit with this and say, let me be curious about this instead of critical. Why is it that 1,600 people are dying each year? Every day, I'm sorry, every day. Okay, so while you're at whenyounneedafriend.com, like I said, please subscribe and opt in when you get your email. But you also can go and check out my sponsors, support our sponsors the way they're supporting the classroom. Also, there's my Shop Now bag. That all of these are Lilly approved products, whether it's makeup that has is chemical free and has is no synthetics or anything to that effect, from makeup all the way to pain management without medication. There's so much we don't know. So just go there. Some of those products are affiliate products, and it will help the classroom grow, but some others are not. So please go check them out. Another way that you can help the classroom is by attending some of our workshops and some of our seminars. And one of them that we're having on November 3rd and 4th is the Emotion Code with Dr. Bradley Nelson. That's November 3rd and 4th in beautiful Cape Canaveral, Florida. We will learn how to tap into the subconscious mind, because I don't know if we'll have time to talk about the emotional side of cancer or disease, but this is a way to tap into your subconscious mind, to release some of these thoughts and traumas that are still causing the toxic thoughts that may be causing illness in your body as well. So go check it out. Go to whenyounneedafriend.com. There's a pop-up. You can click on that and start your journey in learning more about how to release traumas from your body. And last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom. And whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation, I don't care what the price is or the amount that you donate, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, all of it is necessary so that we can continue offering free programs for you so that you can learn and grow and continue to be healthier. And there's so many questions that I have for you, Dr. Seyfried, and I want to thank you for coming into the classroom today. For those of you who want to learn more, and when you click onto Dr. Seyfried's name, his email address is going to be there, or I'll put the email address in my blog. So it's very important that you become a subscriber. But Dr. Thomas, it's thomas.seyfried@bc.edu if you have any questions for him. I remember the influence you had on me back in 2015. And my hat's to you, my hat's off to you, and an honor that you have continued not only to teach this in your school, in your classes, but that you are going around telling the people the only way this is going to change is not by waiting for the corporations that make money on us being sick. It's about us making this change. So thank you so much, Dr. Seyfried, for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to shift gears here, because I do want to talk about solutions and metabolic treatment. What does that look like? And I've got some questions for you first. Let me just ask a question. Fermentation. I know that there's a lot of buzz of fermentation. There's fermented foods, there's fermented beverages, like kombucha and things like that. Can fermented foods cause fermented cells, fermentation in the body?
No.
Good. Okay. Next question is, can you eat a ketogenic ketogenic diet when you're healthy. In other words, I know that you're talking about cancer with ketogenic and ketosis, but when somebody is healthy, like for example, I eat a nutritarian lifestyle. So I make sure that I have plenty of nutrients. Processed foods are hardly ever in my diet. So someone like me, who benefits from a ketogenic diet? Only cancer people or people that are diseased, or everybody?
Well, the whole diet thing is can be very confusing to a lot of people. And it's ketogenic diet is just simply a low glucose diet. We built the glucose ketone index calculator, published it. It's open access on the web. You'll see it. That tells people
what is it called again?
The glucose ketone index, the GKI, the glucose ketone index. You'll see it on the web a lot now.
Okay.
I built it. My students and I built it for helping cancer patients get into nutritional ketosis or therapeutic ketosis. But it turns out that a lot of just folks that want to be super healthy want to get their GKI low too. They don't have cancer. Maybe they want to prevent cancer. And they use a glucose ketone index calculator. It's the Keto Mojo meter that you can buy on Amazon is a glucose ketone monitor. And a lot of cancer patients and even folks that don't have cancer want to, you can buy it. As I said, it's on Amazon. It's called Keto Mojo. There may be other meters out there, but the Keto Mojo, you measure your blood with a strip. You keep your blood glucose and your blood ketones, and you push a button and it gives you the ratio of glucose to ketones in the blood. And when you have a very low GKI, you're really in nutritional ketosis, which means your mitochondria get super healthy when you're in that zone. And you can't get cancer if your mitochondria remain healthy. You get cancer when your mitochondria become corrupted. So low GKI keeps your mitochondria healthy. You don't need a ketogenic diet, any diet. We've seen it with Mediterranean, vegan, carnivore, pescatarian.
Good.
You just have to say, oh, I'm eating these vegetables. I can't get into ketosis or whatever. Then stop eating the vegetables and see what happens. Just do water only. And then all of a sudden you'll see you get down there. Okay, then start back on the vegetables and you'll find out what vegetable keeps you in ketosis and what doesn't. So you can then, the body itself becomes your tool to know what you can and cannot eat, all based on the GKI. It's not speculation anymore, it's quantitative. Mm-hmm. So people can then know, oh, can I eat this or can I eat that? I don't know. What does it do to your GKI? So, and that's the way people learn their body. Like you said, if you understand the metabolism of your body, then you can understand what makes you healthy and what doesn't make you healthy. Now, I'm not saying everybody should keep a low GKI all the time. What I'm saying, for cancer patients, it becomes essential to kill cancer cells so that you can regain health. But for those folks that want to just be healthy, like my friend Dominic D'Agostino, Dom is always in ketosis. He's a weightlifter and he's a very exercise guy, and he's always in a low GKI. So there are a lot of folks that are like that. So that tells you take a lot of the mystery and the speculation away from it by looking at your blood glucose and ketone. And this is what people with diabetes would often use. And yes, there are going to be new non-invasive ways to look at this. The free Libra for glucose, there's probably one being made for ketones. So people are going to have these devices on them that will always tell them whether or not they're in ketosis. And if you're in ketosis, that's the way we evolved. We were always, as a species, for tens of thousands of years in ketosis because that was our natural state.
Yeah. Now,
today, we're rarely in ketosis, and we suffer from all kinds of chronic diseases, not only cancer, diabetes, we have high blood pressure, hypertension, you got all kinds of cardiovascular disease, dementia. I mean, all of these things are related to abnormal diet and lifestyle issues in one way or another. Yeah, there's a genetic component for some of these, but it's much less prominent than the environmental issues that we deal with. So yeah, the GKI is a way for people to know what they can and cannot eat. And it's a very simple test. And people, you go on the web, you'll see all these clubs that talk about it, and for cancer patients, for non-cancer patients. So it's not just a ketogenic diet. It's any diet that will bring you into nutritional ketosis. Will a ketogenic diet do that? Absolutely. But you can do it with a carnivore diet as well. You just don't eat much meat. You just eat whatever you eat, small amounts. And next thing you know, wow, my GKI is down. Okay, great. Can you do it with a vegan or vegetarian? It's a little bit more difficult because there's more carbs in vegetables than there is in meat. But, people do it. They can do it. But when they realize, I can't eat bread or rice or pasta or that stuff, then they say, what can I eat to keep a low GKI? Not that.
Well, you know what? People devalue themselves so much that they think that a piece of meat, a piece of pie or a piece of rice is gonna, it's like, I can't give it up. I can't give it up.
I know.
And I'm like, well, you're worth more than that. You're worth more than a grain of rice. And so when we're thinking about, being part of the solution, which is to have a balance. What I'm hearing you say is water fasting, is intermittent fasting. Can it also get you into ketosis?
Well, it depends. You got to check your GKI.
Okay.
Intermittent it's going to lower it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into the therapeutic zone of 2.0 or below, this is what we have for the cancer patients. When people say, whoa, man, that's tough to get in there. Well, that's the way we always were. When we evolved as a species, we didn't have delicatessens on every corner. You were a hunter-gatherer. I mean, you know how hard it is to chase down a buffalo and kill it?
Yeah.
And then skin it and try to eat it.
And then you share it, and you share it with the village because so you don't get a lot of it. You don't get a plaque. You don't get a plaque on the wall that says you ate a 26-ounce steak,
with a big load of potatoes next to it, right?
Right. And what are some those, because we've got about 5 minutes left in the program. And I would love to extend it and do more and maybe have you back again, because this information is so life-saving. And so
it's empowering.
It is empowering. Yeah, that's the best word. That's the best word. So when we're looking at the nutritional aspect, because everybody can look at that and say, okay, that's really easy to do. I want to talk about the emotional component. Like, we're eating well, we're doing everything well, but we have toxic thoughts. Have you done any research on that kind of toxicity and how it affects our cells and mitochondria?
Not for general public, but for cancer patients, we know that the diagnosis of cancer immediately creates a sense of doom and gloom. Doom and gloom elevate corticosteroids in our body, which elevates blood sugar, which makes a bad situation worse. So what we call emotional stress, we call it stress management, to reduce emotional stress that comes from a diagnosis like that, can help actually move the patient into a more managed state when combined with the right diet and exercise. Nice. So the whole it's a whole body thing, and people they should know that cancer can be managed effectively once they know how to do it and work with a trained person who can help them move through the different stages of management. I think we've been accustomed to hear that when you have a cancer even the people on TV, I got diagnosed with cancer. Well, okay, now you start changing diet and lifestyle and start hammering the hell out of these tumor cells.
That's right.
And regain your health. And you can do that. Guy Tannenbaum, he's on the web. He had stage 4 prostate cancer. And he did these water-only 18-day fasting condition. He got himself into shape by doing this repeated water-only fasting. And he got rid of his type 2 diabetes. His metastatic cancer was gone. Type 2 diabetes was gone. Hypertension was gone. High blood pressure was gone. And he's a very healthy guy today. Yeah. He's on the web telling everybody what he did. Yeah. He just, went on fasts and things. The cancer cells can't handle that.
Yeah.
They're not flexible. They're locked into fermentation. And when you take those fermentable fuels away, they're going to die. And the rest of your body gets healthy. And your body turns on the tumor cells and eats them. This is another thing. Once you reach the state of metabolic homeostasis, there's this concept called autolytic cannibalism, where your body will actually go after and kill and eat the tumor cells, using it for the fuel for the rest of the body. That's an interesting concept.
That's it. That's it.
I published that in the dog. And dogs too. These dogs are dying from cancer like there's no tomorrow. They're all eating the same crap. They have no exercise. They're eating highly dog didn't evolve to eat a lot of carbohydrates. There should be no carbohydrates in a dog's meal.
That's
but
right.
They have a lot of dogs have cancer, and the metabolic therapy works for them just as well as it works for humans. Published a big paper on this.
Mm-hmm.
People can go into the I published in open access, which means everybody. Open access journals, you can get them on the web. So you just put you can see our dog paper, our case reports on humans.
Awesome.
Preclinical work that we do. So people can read this, the GKI, glucose ketone index, all that stuff is out there. All you have to do is look at it, read it.
Are you on PubMed.gov as well?
Yeah.
Okay, PubMed.gov. That's another one. That's a really great
put my
place
name
to go
and just say publications, and you'll see all this stuff, and you get it right there. You don't have to have a subscription to a journal or anything.
Awesome.
So that's one of the advantages of open access. Open
Yes.
access allows you to read this.
Wonderful. I have a question. You had mentioned something earlier, and I wrote it down, and I want to make sure I ask it. You talked about when the mitochondria is corrupt, then that's when cancer happens. But can you reverse the mitochondria by changing your lifestyle? Is that what causes homeostasis in the body and reversal of cancer?
Yeah, I think that's an important point. It's not yet clear whether this is called autophagy, where the cell goes through a kind of a cleansing system internally, where some parts of the mitochondria are dysfunctional to go to the lysosome and be digested. And what happens then? The cell has a new healthy, a more functional mitochondria. But once cancer cells have gone through that, we're more into the strategy of killing them. We're not interested in having something that we didn't kill recur. We want a complete extermination of the tumor cells as best we can without toxicity to the rest of the body. So I don't know if we can, re-educate some cancer cells to be normal. If we can re-educate them, fine. If we can't, we get rid of them. So in a natural way. So I think the strategy will definitely work, and it's also exciting. And people know about it, and they take charge now. They now become masters of their own destiny in a sense, and they get healthier. And they go, "Oh wow, I can't believe my cancer is gone. I never felt better in my life." It's actually astonishing.